think there were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was of an astonishingly wide range.
Even after all these years, Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth's decision to never live together at Buckingham Palace remains a serious topic on everyone's tongue, from royal insiders to casual observers. While there were speculations about this separation, Princess Anne has come bearing gifts, secrets so well kept within the royal family that could finally expose the reason behind this unconventional arrangement. What could Anne possibly know about her parents' arrangement? What exactly did she say? Join us as we discuss Princess Anne's informed insight on Philip's choice to live away from the Queen. The beginning of a sweet, sweet romance. Philip and Elizabeth's love story is one right out of a Disney screenplay. They were two little lads at a royal wedding between Philip's cousin, Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark, and Prince George, Duke of Kent, and paternal uncle of Elizabeth, in 1934. As is tradition, they were introduced, and the formality was out of the way. However, right after the party, Prince Philip secretly yearned for her presence once more, even though she was considerably younger than he. Luckily, this was not a sentiment that he alone shared, as the sweet princess, at the time, also felt an unexplainable urge to talk to him again. Having met briefly on 2 occasions between 1934 and 1937, the pair crossed paths again at the Royal Naval College in Dartmouth in July 1939, where Prince Philip was training with the British Navy, which seemed somewhat unusual given his roots as a Greek-Danish prince. His tall, athletic build and blonde hair, paired with natural strength and unrivaled talents in the Navy, gave the then 13-year-old Elizabeth butterflies in her stomach. She was as sure as climate change that she had found the right one at the age of 13. It's a wonder how her parents must have felt about that now, eh? As soon as both parties could sense that the feeling was mutual, they immediately picked up on it. With no iPhones to hide behind, Philip and Elizabeth had to do a lot of talking when they saw each other and then consolidated their affairs with writing, exchanging heartfelt letters of burning desire repeatedly. Elizabeth's letters were an exposé of a 13-year-old child who had just found love at her most innocent stage, burning like embers of fire stoked for the first time in her young, fragile heart. Philip, who was initially drawn to his naval career, couldn't resist the charm of Elizabeth either. He was smitten by her innocence and crazed by how much love burned in her fragile heart for him. Then came the Second World War in 1939, threatening their love with the possibility of death as Prince Philip served in the British Navy, fighting for the interests of the crown. However, he survived and went on to become a war hero. His survival only fostered their love even more, proving that they were destined to be together. Elizabeth and Philip got secretly engaged just a year after the war, and Philip decided to renounce his Greek and Danish titles as a prince while adopting the Mountbatten surname and becoming the Earl of Edinburgh. While King George agreed to their union, he was keen to ensure that a formal arrangement only hold after Elizabeth turned 21, giving her the leverage of maturity and disillusionment to help her see if she had made the right decision, but her heart remained set on Philip, convincing the king that her position was informed by her head and her heart in perfect alliance. However, with love letters sealed and sent across borders, and hearts burning with desire to take a journey into the unknown, did the couple live a fairy tale marriage or finally succumb to the burden of the crown? A perfect marriage. For a love story that started when they were 2 wee lads enjoying their evening at a party, it sure grew into something no one else saw but them. While there was rarely any hint at a blossoming love story when they first met, fast forward a couple of years, and the world can't stop talking about them, especially the build-up to the wedding. Rumor has it that Prince Philip was a hopeless romantic. He was completely smitten by Elizabeth, but he wanted something other than his word to show her that. So he came up with the grandest plans for their engagement and his proposal. While getting married to the love of one's life is already a beautifully daunting quest on its own, getting married to the love of one's life, who also happens to be the heir presumptive to one of the most coveted thrones in the world, was a completely different animal, and Prince Philip took it on bravely. For his opening act, he proposed to Elizabeth with a 3-carat round diamond ring consisting of a center stone flanked by 10 smaller pavé diamonds. While a diamond is nothing new to the princess, This one had real sentimental value, as it was taken from a tiara that belonged to Philip's mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, and was also used to create a quatrefoil bracelet for Elizabeth. This grand gesture touched hearts and created emotional moments throughout the United Kingdom, sending a message about the kind of prince consort their future queen would be marrying. They got married on November 20th, 1947. Their marriage was blessed with 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward.
To grow up in happy and united families. We have been fortunate in our children,
All of whom went on to become household names in the United Kingdom, not just by virtue of their birth, but also through their duties as working royals. The couple was rumored to take vacations very seriously, as they preferred their escape from the spotlight of the royal family into a world where it's just them basking in the light of love for each other. However, they knew they couldn't hide away forever, and a little doom was knocking on the door, ready to change their lives. From the outside, their union seemed unbreakable after their marriage. However, small cracks began to show as Prince Philip's self-willed nature became a recurring theme in their marriage. But how well did they hide it from the public eye? The public illusion of a perfect marriage. While matters of the heart take precedence in most relationships, a royal union often prioritizes optics. On the surface, Elizabeth and Philip had the perfect marriage, not just as people but as pieces on the political board. The optics were perfect. A wartime hero who renounced his citizenship and title as prince in Greece and Denmark, marrying the heir presumptive to the British crown. Love had won, or at least that was the general belief. Their formal engagements as working royals, portraits, and appearances in public gave the United Kingdom and the world at large the perfect sight of 2 lovebirds who are head over heels for each other. While that sentiment might hold some merit, a recurring theme with the monarchy has always been to be cautious about what you see. Although they painted a beautiful picture of sunshine and rainbows, Prince Philip's struggle for identity began to emerge. Royal insiders who observed the couple at Clarence House claimed that they often lived in separate bedrooms, stayed in private residences within the house, and rarely spoke to each other when they were at home. Prince Philip may have been lashing out due to his initial treatment by some members of the royal family when he first set foot in Buckingham Palace, seeking to draw the attention of the heir presumptive. Of course, the thin line between love and a forced political alliance appeared to have been blurred with his decision to go looking for a bride in the British royal family, and the rationale was pretty straightforward. Prince Philip wasn't immediately accepted by some members of the royal family. Although he was a prince, he had sisters who were married to Germans with affiliation to the old Nazi heritage. While he might have fought in the King's Royal Navy, defending the interests of the British crown, his familial affiliations to Nazi Germany were often used as a stick to beat him with. For some context, he was mostly always referred to as the Hun by Elizabeth's mother, who saw Philip as nothing but another German incendiary looking to nuke the British royal family from the inside. According to some royal insiders, Prince Philip, who took all these verbal battering on the chin like a good soldier, wasn't all too happy with his treatment by some members of the royal family who just didn't see him as good enough for the heir presumptive. Still, he didn't care, at least not until the unfortunate demise of King George VI. His demise created a vacuum of power that needed to be filled by none other than the heir apparent.
If no one is willing or capable of taking any action.
Meaning that Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth, and the kids would have to move to Buckingham Palace. He wasn't interested in moving, but the culture and tradition of the British monarchy had tied his hands, and he reportedly lashed out at his wife in the corridors of Clarence House, unwilling to go to the ancestral seat of power, Buckingham Palace. Although they hid behind their smiles and awkward kisses in the public eye, Prince Philip had begun to pull away. But why exactly was he against going to Buckingham Palace? Prince Philip's struggle with identity. While the prince was quite sure of his place in Elizabeth's heart, he just wasn't certain of his place in her government. Prince Philip has always been a good soldier, following orders and going off to war. Hence, a seat in politics seemed rather off-character for him. although he was fairly certain of his wife eventually taking up the mantle as monarch of Britain, except, of course, if they suddenly provide some male heir who then becomes the heir apparent by the primogeniture rules. However, he knew that the ship had sailed a long time ago, yet he chose to marry her. Marrying Queen Elizabeth came with a cost that was seemingly not too great in the beginning, but as time went on and the dust began to settle, he figured that he had lost more than he had bargained for: his title, his last name, his property.
Not my brother-in-law, but you know the chap I mean. I don't even get onto the electoral roll.
And his ties to the German roots, having only his genes as the carrier of the marker that ties him to them. Rumor has it that he grew repulsive, angry at the world, and mostly himself for losing the things that made him. Following the death of King George VI, Queen Elizabeth began to assume more roles dedicated to her alone, somewhat cutting him out of the equation, which hurt his pride and sense of self. Philip fell into further resentment and borderline depression, as he believed that he had been ostracized and taken for granted. During Elizabeth's ascension to the throne, the regular struggle for naming the monarch and the kids came to light again. In most cases, the royal house would take her husband's name, which is in line with the customs of the land at the time for married women. However, the Windsor name has been in the family since time immemorial, and Elizabeth's grandmother Mary advocated for it to be kept in the family and retained as the name of the house. While Philip wanted to identify with the monarchy as the House of Edinburgh, named after his ducal title, he faced a strong rebuttal from his grandmother, Queen Mary, who insisted that the House of Windsor retain its name and legacy without fail. Elizabeth issued a declaration on the 9th of April 1952 that the royal house would continue to be Windsor. As expected, Philip was consumed by a fury and unbridled rage. "I am the only man in the country not allowed to give his name to his children," he complained. However, there was no fighting his queen's orders, but he definitely could rock the boat at home with his wife. And one of his many brewing tempests was his decision not to live in Buckingham Palace. Why did he hate the idea of living there? The palace he couldn't call home. In the United Kingdom, Buckingham Palace serves not only as a royal seat of power, but also as a part of the country's rich art, culture, and tradition, deeply ingrained in its fabric. Hence, not having it inhabited by the ruling monarch was always going to stir the pot and raise hailstones of complaints from the casual Brit to royal enthusiasts. Still, Prince Philip wasn't the type to dance to anyone's social tunes. He played the lyre and sang the lyrics. When the Queen ascended the throne of her forebears, it was not only routine but traditional to move to Buckingham Palace, sealing deals and hosting visitors in its massive 775 rooms, which are accounted for by the 188 staff bedrooms, 52 guest rooms, 92 offices, 78 bathrooms, 19 staterooms, and various other service rooms, including kitchens, storage rooms, and staff canteens. However, good old Prince Philip, who had already been thwarted more than once in his attempt to leave his mark on the family's name, decided to revolt against staying in the palace. As is tradition, a monarch needs their consort by their side, but it wouldn't be the first time that culture was shirked when it didn't suit the members of the royal family's agenda. And one great example that comes to mind is the decision to leave the name unchanged as House of Windsor. Their old house, Clarence House, is also rather easy to heat. Throughout her life, the late Queen used a 2-bar electric fire to heat rooms at Buckingham Palace in which enormous fireplaces were never lit. Due to the high electricity bills, Prince Philip also stopped heating the swimming pool. It had reduced the carbon footprint and kept costs down, but it added to the impression of a building that has been mothballed, implying that it was regularly maintained in pristine condition for when it might be used again. Imagine how much power goes into powering a 775-room palace. Not a fun bill to pay, even for a monarch as rich as the Windsors. More importantly, he felt his influence waning on matters that mattered. However, while he was not on the best of terms with Queen Elizabeth's grandmother, Queen Mary, it didn't stop him from fulfilling his duties, following his wife wherever she went. It was always imperative for him that duties be carried out without fail. Once a soldier, forever a soldier after all. So he decided to eventually move out of Buckingham to live out his days in Sandringham, where he enjoyed privacy and had full control of proceedings. But the question remains burning in the hearts of royal insiders. Was Prince Philip's decision to leave Buckingham Palace truly about privacy, or was there something more sinister behind it? The royal trade-off. While leaving his wife at Buckingham Palace might have saved their marriage from falling apart, with both parties finding peace, it came at a cost. It was a trade-off between intimacy and stability in exchange for legacy, stability, and peace.
My husband and I look forward eagerly to the series of visits we shall make next year in the Commonwealth.
Although the latter three seem like the price of a successful reign as a monarch, it also suggests that the marriage had broken at the seams and leaked the bond that had kept it running like a well-oiled machine. However, rumors of a deliberate decision to leave out of spite persisted. Some insiders reported that he went in search of romanticism and an appreciation for nature. He wanted to be in a place where he gets woken up with birds singing ballads of the good morrow to his waking soul. So he moved to Sandringham Estate in 2017. Their sacrifice of daily intimacy, which had been a staple of their marriage for many decades, was a rather telling one. However, doubts had set in for many who had always considered Prince Philip
is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage. It may not be quite so important when things are going well.
An outsider. They believed that his withdrawal from the place at the age of 96, when his wife would need his sagacity and intimacy the most, when only he would understand her private jokes, was a late act of rebellion. The rationale is deeply rooted in the grand scheme of his first treatment by family members of the House Windsor. The belief was simple. The real culprits, who put him through it and made sure that his household never bore his name, had all but died. And he needed one last person to bear the brunt of the hurt he felt that day, when his heart shattered in a million pieces as his kids were stopped from taking his name. Controversies and speculations continued to spread like wildfire, and somebody somewhere had to do something about it. The radio silence from Prince Charles, the heir apparent, and his siblings had always given the royal enthusiasts the metaphorical ick. It felt almost as though they had first-hand information about their father and chose to say nothing. However, by 2021, they couldn't stay silent forever as Prince Philip passed away on April 9, 2021. Their mother, the Queen, was at his bedside as he succumbed to the firm hands of old age, dragging him home. Princess Anne, who has often been dubbed as his closest companion, finally revealed her thoughts about her father, debunking rumors and setting the record straight. What did she have to say about her father's decision in August 2017? Princess Anne reveals her father's reasons for leaving the palace. For a man who has suffered from an acute case of identity crisis since he left his home, joined the British Royal Navy, and fought for the flags of a country he wasn't born in, Prince Philip wasn't the easiest man to understand. He was the type who was wise to his ways and completely disillusioned with the world and the superstructures that ran it. Remember his treatment by Elizabeth's mother, who simply couldn't see reason in accepting him as a suitable option for her daughter, alongside other members of the royal family's disapproval? Well, Prince Philip didn't forget. While Princess Anne, his first and only daughter, fought back tears as she discussed him, she revealed the real reasons behind his decision to leave the palace before his eventual demise at a very old age.
But applying to Chelmsford, it is very much about a title with a future.
The Princess Royal, who had pre-recorded an interview with ITV, talked about the relationship between her parents and just how confusing it was for people who looked in from the outside. While she didn't acknowledge nor deny the friction between them, she certainly discussed their love and support for each other. The interview broke her into smithereens, but she had her brother, Prince Edward, in the interview with her, who helped her calm down and answered alongside her, with revelations about the reality of their parents' relationship. My parents have been such a fantastic support to each other during all those years, and all those events, and all those tours and events overseas, he said. To have someone that you confide in and smile about things that you perhaps could not in public. Anne waxed lyrical about their father too, discussing just how important he was to keeping the family together. While both Anne and Edward shared their accounts of their father, one thing stood out like a sore thumb: his decision to live alone in Sandringham.
Good evening, Your Majesty. Welcome to our Navy Club.
Leaving their mother, whom he supposedly loved, behind at Buckingham. This time, it was the upset Anne who answered. She had previously heard remarks about her father's decision to leave the palace out of spite, so she chose to set the record straight, telling the interviewer in plain terms that her father left because he got older and wanted some space where there wouldn't be a million people trying to shake his hand every day and walk around a farm without being watched. Princess Anne's bond with her father has remained an important part of her life, being the only child to continue his tradition with her children even after his passing. In 1963, the Princess Royal became the first British royal woman to attend school when she started at Benenden. At the time, she couldn't follow in her father's footsteps and go to Gordonstoun School in Scotland, as it wasn't co-educational. But this later changed, and both of Princess Anne's children, Peter Phillips and Zara Tyndall, were educated there. While speculations have gathered steam for a long time about his decision to maintain his distance from the palace, his favorite daughter's revelation seems to have ended it, putting royal enthusiasts out of their misery. Was Prince Philip's decision to live alone at Sandringham fueled by hate, or was he just an old man who wanted some privacy?
We are now going to see the world's most experienced pack unveil.
How costly was this quest for privacy to his reputation? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.